open the window slightly in case any of the bird sounds filter through. I have my music on a playlist on the lowest volume in the background in case any of the sounds get picked up. It might be meaningful. I warmed up my mocha. I got another water. I feel like I know the enormity of this, so it keeps making me nervous, and I feel like I don't know how to start. And I don't want to talk in this weird, quiet voice. I need to listen to this back and see what I sound like. I even like that there might be a gentle hum of the cars going by, but it will be amplified because I opened the window. I don't know why I'm in whisper voice mode. I mean, maybe it's my veil voice, but I feel like I'm drifting, like I'm in the veil. Oh, and I lit my throat chakra incense in the bathroom and some Palo Santo. I think this is how this starts. Maybe I'm not very loud, but maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what the veil wants. That was me getting through my fear. And now I'm here and ready to begin. And Celia's awake now, and she's ready to participate. Oh, it's so beautiful. She likes hearing the birds. I'm finding my own voice and not letting other people set my voice. Like, I was just starting to question myself, like, do I need to go get my tripod to put my phone on it so I can just speak into it? But it's more intimate and more, it feels better to me to be speaking into my phone while I'm holding it. And sometimes the sounds may come through differently because I may move around. I may hold it in one hand or the other. I may be leaning to one side or another. I may be sitting in different places as it comes together, but that's all part of it. The moments of crossing the veil, I'm like through figuring this out and through this talking. I'm learning what crossing the veil means to me, and it means so much more than what I even thought whenever I started out with just the title. I started out with the title for a painting, and then it grew into so much more. I think maybe something that's been holding me up on getting started is I want to explain what I mean by crossing the veil, or what is it to cross the veil. And it's not just the literal moment of the spirit crossing over after they transition. It's those moments of channeling whenever you're in alignment in your energy, and you get the messages or the downloads, or all of the different pieces of something kind of click together, and the puzzle becomes whole in your mind, like in your mind's eye. Or it's whenever you sit down in just the right moment and you start writing. Or say you're a content creator, it's that moment when the idea, it hits you out of nowhere for your next video idea that has meaning to you, and you feel like it will reach far. That's a moment, like that's a crossing the veil moment where you are close enough to your intuition for your spirit team to help you receive what you needed in the moment. I think this is how it starts. Maybe I'm not speaking loud. The ice maker, that's so key. Car coming by, key. Where's the third key? The ice maker again, okay. Hi soul friends, welcome to Crossing the Veil. You may be wondering what I mean by crossing the veil, and we'll get to that later. There is like the literal moment, and that is a very important part of this, but I want to start by talking about how beginning this podcast has been something I've wanted to do for literal years. I've always wanted to be a writer, but I have so many other things that I do that doesn't give me the space and time that I want to sit down and write. But I have so many stories to... Sometimes I lose the channel and I have to take a breath and come back and restate what I'm trying to say. This is a podcast where I get to share my stories with you. And a lot of those stories are moments where I feel that I've been close to the veil or close to spirit in like creations of my music, creations of my art, or channeling and co-creating with my spirit team. And a lot of it started long after my near-death experience, and it continued through some other close veil crossing moments where I had due to different illnesses, and continued through to me making a painting and making a sound with that title, Crossing the Veil. And everything always links together. Eventually, not everything, but part of my path has been finding the soul threads between things, like the spirit woven threads between things in my life. And that's what's given me meaning and given me healing and given me hope. And I want to share some of those stories with you so that maybe you can relate to some of the stories in a way that you can take what I have learned from the process and apply it to your own situation in a way that can give you some kind of peace or help or hope, or just a sense of being heard, or just a sense of being felt or not feeling alone in things. And sometimes my voice may not be very loud. Sometimes I can become very soft-spoken when I'm in a channeling state, whenever I'm telling some of my stories and weaving things together. And that's okay too. I'll just turn the volume up so you can listen, because sometimes we don't learn the big lessons through the big, loud moments. Sometimes we learn in the quiet moments when we're alone and processing in our own unique way without outside interference. And that's okay too. Sometimes those low, quiet moments are when the spirit world or the veil is closest to us. And if we can reach out and ask for guidance from our higher self or our spirit team, and And in this podcast, I'll talk a lot about my spirit team over time and things like that. But in those moments, those are when we are asked to connect more closely to, we find ourselves asking why, what's the purpose of this? And that's what has helped me. That's where whenever I ask why and I give myself the space to listen, that's when I'm losing the channel right now. Hi, this is Amanda back from the editing chair. I noticed I lost the channel there, and I have some transitions coming up and then more channels and more stuff for this episode coming up. But I want to drop in here and say the rest of what I was trying to channel there. Those quiet moments whenever I go into meditation and I just start talking out loud with my guides, like what I'm thinking as I'm thinking through my process out loud. That's when the information starts changing. That's when the channel opens, and that's when I start learning the lessons that I'm gaining from whatever I'm trying to process. And it's in those quiet moments when spirit can step in. But another thing, my music is something that I create with real world sounds around you to help you find those quiet moments inside yourself, no matter what's going on around you. And this doesn't quite fit with everything else here, but that's the point. Nothing has to be perfect. And I want you to learn how, from my stories, to take a moment just to try to apply things to your own life and search for the moments and search for the lessons in the quiet moments by processing more deeply, like asking why. Maybe the answers will come as you start asking why. Maybe your spirit guides will start answering you. You may notice I said that I was losing the channel, and I was. For me, the process is scattered moments of coming close to the veil where I channel messages, I channel art, I channel sounds, or I just channel downloads and understandings and meditation messages that I may share with you later. But sometimes I just need to stop and get up and move around and go to a different location and then drop back in. So the beginning of this has been me trying to introduce you to this podcast and to myself. And this next clip, after I lost the channel, I took a break and I went outside with my dog and we fed the birds. And then we sat down on the porch, and then it slowly started raining, and we watched the birds eat, we listened to the rain, and I dropped back in and I continued the channel. And it's spotty and slow and stops and starts. But that's my process. I'm slower than the normal person. And I think that's what allows me to see more than the average person, or to process or understand, or to... Maybe that's what allows me to get close to the veil and get these messages that I want to share. So I'm sorry that this portal episode is a little bit rough, but let's keep going because there's a lot of stuff here that I hope resonates with you. I hope you pick up on, if you stick around and listen to it all. Maybe where you're listening gives you the option to speed it up and listen a little bit faster. I don't know. That's what's helping me in editing, is speeding it up. But the messages and the tone and the energy that want to come through are in the slowed down real moments. you may notice me pop in as transitional markers throughout different sections of this podcast, because for me, it's a process of braiding together the channeled spirit messages. Because for me, it's a process of braiding together the moments channeled from spirit and the moments of human trying to interpret and make it make sense. That's kind of how I live. So maybe this podcast is a portal for you to start tuning in more to those spirit moments and giving yourself the human time to try to process as well. Hi, soul friends. Welcome to Crossing the Veil. This is Amanda, otherwise known as Gemini Witch 83. Sometimes I struggle to find where to begin, and sometimes I have to begin in the middle or somewhere else and then backtrack to the point. And sometimes my stories lose people. Sometimes I may record clips in different places and have different ambient sounds and have to weave it all together. But through my spirit-guided path of making channeled art and channeled sounds and different things, I have begun to learn the perfection and the beauty in imperfection. And that's the key to crossing the veil and tapping in with the present moment. And just as I said that, this girl jumped back on the fence. The squirrel distracted me for a minute, but anyway, this is the first episode in what I hope will be many of where I get to have a story time and tell you about some of the lessons I've learned along my spiritual journey. And some of these stories may tie into my art or my sound magic or my channeled messages that come through in meditation. The episodes may be a little choppy with different background sounds from part to part, because crossing the veil isn't just one big dramatic moment. It happens in all the little moments of in between, where you get to sit with yourself and tune in with your inner guide and your inner light and your spirit team, and really process through the emotions and the lessons of your life experiences. And in this podcast, I want to reflect on some of my life experiences and share some of the lessons that I have learned through my experiences, so that maybe you can get something from my experiences that you can apply to your own life to help you with some kind of lesson that you're learning, or maybe a sound or an energy that comes through will resonate with you. Maybe it won't. That's okay. One of my biggest spirit-guided lessons has been finding the perfection in imperfection, and finding the lesson in the pauses, and learning all of the things that come through in those moments when you're close to the veil, when you're in that channeling state and you're co-creating and you're pouring paint on the canvas, not expecting something to come out, just waiting to see the stories that it wants to tell you in the future. Or, I mean, maybe that's me, but when I sit down to play my singing bowls or pick up a flute, I don't have a plan. I just ask my spirit team or the energy around me or the energy that I am processing or going through at the moment, I ask that to come through in a meaningful way that people can listen to and meditate with and find their own discoveries and their own moment of peace within themselves, no matter what's going on around them in the world. And in this podcast, I want to tell you some of my stories of moments where I've created some of these paintings and some of these sounds and what I was going through and some of the messages that came through over time as I've been processing with them in meditation through the years even. I'll start with the painting, Crossing the Veil, and I'll talk about the sound, Crossing the Veil. And one of the key touchstones of this episode is going to be my near-death experience in my car confirmation. One of the key points in this episode is going to be about my near-death experience, where I was in a car accident and I have had reoccurring dreams about my crossing the veil experience, where I went to the other side and came back. And I've had some other close calls since then, and one of those close call experience relates to the song Crossing the Veil even, and relates to my first song, Messages from Spirit. And that's what I'll get into coming up. This podcast is going to be my audio storybook filled with my lifetime of stories that have so much deeper meaning that I really want to share with those who really want to listen. I've had many crossing the veil moments or close to the veil moments, and I want to share some of those with you and how they came through either in my near-death experience or one of my paintings or one of my sounds or other moments where I was just in the right energy and a channeled inspiration for a painting or a sound came through. This may not be a perfect soundscape. This may not at all times be cohesive in the background sounds because it may be recorded in clips in different places that I bring together to share the stories with you. But that's part of the point. That's how the real magic of our lives comes through in those moments where we're close with our inner self and with our higher self and with our spirit team, and we have this download or this message or this thought or this thing that has to come through us that we co-create with spirit, or the energy that we're going through, or the energy that's around us. And the purpose of this podcast for me, I want to share my soul-lived stories with you and the spirit messages that I have received and the lessons and understandings that I have gained through my experiences and my meditations and my downloads and my art and my sounds and everything else. And I want to share that stuff with you so that if anything that I say resonates with you in any way, maybe you can touch in and listen to the song that is the topic of the podcast of that message, and meditate and find the message or the meaning within yourself from your own higher self and spirit guides, or go to listen to your favorite meditation or go do your favorite exercise and just kind of soak in, like process the way that it touches you and the meaning that it has for you. I have taught myself so many of my lessons through so much of this process as I've gone through life. And I want to share those lessons and help guide other people to be able to find your own healing and understanding and inner standing for yourself. And that's Burl, my stomach gurgling. Learning how to listen to your own gut instincts, your own intuitions, and learning how to tap into the keys in my stories that touch on keys in your life. And I want to share different stories and show you how they connect together in the deeper overall meanings that I have gathered, so that you can start doing that in your own life, on your own path, and find the deeper meanings and purposes and guideposts in your own life. The way Hecate and Persephone have guided me to the underworld and back, and across the veil and back, or next to the veil and back, or the way I've walked with spirits to the veil and I've come back and they've gone across. Like all of that, your spirit guides will come in for you and help you figure out where spirit is present in your life. It may not be the same as mine. It may be related to something completely different, but what are the things that light you up? Where are the moments that you feel closest to God? Where are the moments that you feel most aligned? And start asking your team to show you the loops and the spirals that keep bringing you back to the same lessons. And what are they teaching you? How are you using those to grow and continue the lesson? That's the kind of stuff I want to talk about. This is one of the channeled messages that want to come through this first podcast. You don't have to do everything perfectly. You don't have to do everything in order. And you don't have to understand why you're capturing things in the moment when you are. You just know when you're supposed to capture something or record it or save it to notes or take a picture of it. Because if it's meant to be in your soul storybook, you'll come back to it and you'll be grateful that you have it saved so that you can use it and re-examine it to understand it more later. You don't have to know and understand everything all at once. You can come back to it again and again and again with new awareness each time and new ways to look at it and new ways to process and feel and understand. Everything has different energetic layers, and each time you come back, you examine things through a different energetic lens, or you're removing or you're examining a different energetic layer. And each part of the process is as important as the other. Because without all of the pieces of a puzzle, it's not complete. Sometimes I forget what I just said. Sometimes I'll record, I used to record storytime videos and I would forget what I said until I watched it back later. That's the channeling moment happening. And so that's why this may be kind of choppy, but I'll try to piece it together the best way I can, because the choppy pieces are the authenticity that underline this whole storybook. And I love it at the same time as, like, I know people are going to find it annoying and complain about it. So I hate that about it. But the people that understand will get it. Because like I said, things don't come through all at once. Like spiritual, soul-guided spiral messages don't come through all at once. They come through in pieces over time. And if you're able to pick up all of the pieces and keep following the thread that ties it all together, that is the key. And that's why I may revisit different things in different parts. I may repeat things a little bit in different ways. That's part of my processing. And that's why this is my soul storybook, or my spirit guided storybook, or my spirit storybook. Because this is my spiritual path, and I'm sharing my stories through my spiritual path with you to help you understand and grow in your own spiritual path in your own way, because I want you to find something from the lessons that I have gained and apply it to your own path in your own way, so that you can build your own soul storybook. And in the channeling state, it comes out how it's meant to. And it's not meant for me to like understand or remember in the moment. It's meant to come out how it's meant to come out. And it's okay if I don't remember it, because I'm in that open channeling state. I'm in an open flow state. And that's why I record it, and I have editing to go back to piece it together in the right order so that it makes sense whenever I can look at it objectively. Right now I'm in a subjective flow method. And that's why it may be a little bit choppy, but in the editing part, I will be more objective, and I will go in and try to make sense of the channeled messages and help break it down a little bit and move the story along and transition things together. One of the first stories I want to tell you about is my near-death experience. In 2003, a few months before my birthday, right around the time of my dead brother's birthday, which was about 3 months before mine, I started having visions of being in a car accident and dying the way he did. And I was afraid to have my birthday. Like, I was about to turn 20, and his accident was about a month and a half after he turned 20. And I was afraid that I was going to die the same way. And I didn't want to have a birthday party. I didn't want to celebrate that birthday or anything. I was just afraid. And I made some poor choices and was in a car accident. I wasn't driving, I was a passenger. I was ejected from the vehicle. I'll talk more about my injuries and things in the next episode, but I kept, after the fact, after like years after the accident, I kept having reoccurring dreams from seeing my dead brother during that time when I was either in a coma, or I don't know if it was the time of the impact or if it was the time when I was in the coma or what, but I knew that I had seen my dead brother during that time, that he'd been there with me as a guardian. And I don't know if it was at the moment of impact or the moment when I was ejected, or I don't really know the situation, like whether I technically died or not. But I knew that I had a time during that time when I was with my brother. I knew that he'd been there. A family member had said they had seen him there. I lost the channel again, but I'll drop in here and give you one more short message before I go into my near-death experience reoccurring dream memory. On the next episode, I will tell you a little bit more about myself, and I'll be able to tell you more about the painting that I have called Crossing the Veil, the sound magic that I've created called Crossing the Veil, and I'll be able to tell you about my song called Messages from Spirit that also has Crossing the Veil as its cover art. And I'll be able to tell you all of the stories and all of the energy entwined in all of that. But I kind of ran out of time today. And that's kind of my point I was telling you earlier. I'm very adaptable. I want to keep the authenticity. I don't want to stress. I don't want to push. I don't want to clip too much. This is my process, and I want to share it with you as authentically as I can. And I hope you'll come back to hear some of those stories on my birthday on June 8th. And if you wish to support me in any way, I would greatly appreciate it if you could go on Spotify or YouTube or Apple or wherever you listen to music and listen to one of my songs. I have a new one coming out on the 11th called Cloudy Day Lullaby. My most recent sound is called Let It Flow. And in the future in this podcast, I'll get into more information about my sounds and my art. But I guess this portal day, I was just coming through the veil to tell you a little bit about me and lay down the basis for this podcast and where it might go. And thanks for being here. Have a blessed day. And I'll leave you here with the reoccurring dream I've had that I eventually realized was my near-death experience memory. And we'll go more in detail in that in the next episode as well. But it started out in the dream. I'm in the back seat of my mom's van, and my mom has almost always driven a van. And my mom and dad are in the front, and my brother Scott and I are in the back, and we're just talking and chatting along, and I think Scott's talking and chatting along, and we're driving towards this place where there's a lake, and out past the lake, my uncle had a piece of land, and we're driving out into the country a little bit, like a familiar area close by where family lives and things like that. So I don't think anything unusual. And then the dream changes and we get out, and the grass is kind of high, and forgive me, this may be slow coming through because I'm mentally going back and pulling this forward like visually as I try to describe my visualization. The grass is kind of like yellow, like wheat, like the tall wheat things. And we walk, but we don't see like the family. It's not the place I thought we were. It's just like this open hillside. And we start walking down over the side of the hill, and when we get to the bottom of the hill, we turn around and Mom and Dad aren't there anymore, and it's just us, and there's like a creek at the bottom, and we get in the creek and we start walking, and then we go into a tunnel, which in my memory, the tunnel looks like one that I recognize from close to home and close to where I went to elementary school and stuff like that. But we're going into the tunnel, and we're in the creek, and the water starts to get deeper and deeper, and we're like into the middle of the tunnel, and it gets so deep and so dark and so cold, and we have to swim through the water. But then it starts to shallow down again, and it's like it's going up and going down, like up a hill, down a hill kind of thing. But I guess it's going deeper and then getting shallow, so maybe it's like a valley, I guess. But that's not the point. But then we come out the other side of the tunnel, and we come out of the water and walk up the hillside, and it is the most beautiful countryside I've ever seen. And like the green on the grass was like the spring green right after a rain, where it's so bright and so vivid. And there were flowers, and I remember seeing like just fields of flowers, and there were like I was looking up onto hillsides and things, and like we started walking a little bit through the grass and through the flowers of every color, and just the sky was like so blue, and it was so bright and so beautiful. And I don't know how to put it into words, and I try to put it into words, and I feel like this story falls flat because I can't describe the vividness of the color and the way everything looked, and it just felt so peaceful and so comforting. And we've walked up the hill a little ways, and so we're like up and looking out, and it's like the countryside view, and trees off in the distance and hillsides, and I don't remember seeing houses though. It was just nature. And he stops and he turns to me, my brother, and he takes my hands, and I'm like cold and shaking while I'm telling this. He takes my hands and he looks at me and he says, "This is where you're supposed to be, but you have to go back." And I was like, huh? And he says it again. He's like, "This is where you're supposed to be, but you have to go back. You have to go back for Mom. She can't take losing you too." And that's the last thing I remember from that. And I've tried to remember more, and I've told the story to people over and over. It just stops there. I don't remember anything after that. After he tells me I have to come back, or I have to go back because Mom can't take losing me too. Because he had passed 5 years before I did, and I'd been having visions for 3 months before my birthday that I was going to be in a car accident, and I was afraid to turn 20 because he had passed at 20. And I'll tell more story times about like the visions and leading up, and some other meditations and other things later, but that's not important to this story. It's just important that I remember what it looked like there. I remember going through the water and swimming and going through the tunnel, and I remember going from like fall gray wheatgrass into the most beautiful spring with the most beautiful trees and flowers and nature. And I don't remember like animals though. I just remember like being in a beautiful countryside and like flowers and trees and hillsides. And I know I want it to be more profound whenever I tell it to people, and I feel like there's more that I can't express. It's the feeling that I can't express, I think, and just the for a long time after my accident, I knew. I didn't remember that memory or that dream, but I knew that I had gone somewhere and that I had seen my brother and that he'd been there with me as I came back. I just knew in my heart and my energy and my soul that I'd been there with Scott and he'd helped me come back. And some of my family had said that they had seen him there with me in the hospital as well. And from that point, from knowing that someone had seen him and knowing that I knew that I'd seen him, that used to be the one thing that I wished to remember, because I don't remember the accident, and I don't remember most of the day leading up to it. But the one thing that I wished to remember over and over was seeing Scott. And so I started having that reoccurring dream. But I didn't put two and two together for a long time. It was like, sorry, I'm really shaky, really cold telling this, and so my voice may falter. But it was years, and it was probably, I don't think 10 years, but it was probably at least 5 years before I realized that this reoccurring dream was the memory. I was talking to my mom and telling my mom about it one night when we were watching TV in the living room. And I don't know if she said something or if I said something. I think she said something like maybe that was the memory. Because we both have important dreams and like dreams of things to come sometimes. And we both knew that something was coming. Like I had the fear and she had a fear. And that was like one of the beginnings of me realizing that we used to call them our feelings or our knowings, were actually real, like going through that and coming out the other side. And there's another story that goes to that. I'd like to tell you later about this story, about my time travel meditation, and it kind of links to this, so maybe this will go in the full episode, or maybe it will be a future episode. But I'll come back to that later. But yeah, that's my NDE reoccurring dream memory. And I'd like to make more sense out of it and talk more about it. But more will come in the next episode because I have more stories to tell about crossing the veil, such as the sound magic that you heard playing in this episode, my meditation sound, which you can go stream wherever you stream music, and the art piece that I created, that's the cover art for Crossing the Veil. It claimed the title first, the art came first, and then the sound. But I didn't realize how layered and how long this process would take me to create this first episode. So I thought I was going to have a first full episode for you today, but I have this portal episode where I gently brought you into crossing the veil. We opened the portal today, and we started to step through as we go into my NDE reoccurring dream memory. And we'll pick up and go back in to the portal in the next episode, and I'll fully immerse you in everything that I wanted to share that I haven't had time to finish yet. And if you look forward to hearing more from me, I look forward to hearing any comments or questions or anything you may have to say. So you can find me on social media at GeminiWitch83. You can stream my music by searching my artist name at GeminiWitch83. And this is Amanda from Crossing the Veil. Until the portal opens again, I hope that you have something to go into your day or into your week to think a little bit more deeply about. Take time and mull it over in a few different ways and see how something I've said in this little portal may have sparked your curiosity or imagination. And when you come back to the next one, on the first official episode, on my birthday, maybe you can leave me a comment about how something how one of the quotes from this episode has resonated for you over the past week. So I'll see you again next time, and have a blessed day. Thank you for crossing the veil with me today, for listening between the lines, and meeting me at the edge of remembrance. Until the next portal opens, may your path be lit by signs you recognize. May your breath stay steady as the winds shift. May your heart hold the rhythm of your soul spiral. And when the veil calls again, may we meet there,